Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we are back here with another mock draft video to help you guys out with draft season. Yes, we are in August, which means draft season is here for your redraft leagues, and we want to help you guys get a better understanding of where players are going, helping you get some insight of why I'm drafting certain players, and hopefully helps you give you some edge to your season this upcoming year. Again, this is the 7th spot of a 10-team league, full PPR. If there are other formats you guys would love to see, hit me up in the comments down below, and I'd love to help you guys. So as you can see here, I'm in the 7th spot of a 10-team league. Again, this is full PPR, so I want to help you guys get some insight of why I'm going to pick particular players in these spots, and you also kind of see why certain players are starting to fall. This will give you some edge, kind of get you understanding where players are. Of course, you're always going to have league mates that will always give you some type of craziness going on that will obviously mess up your ADP, and you might have to divert and go a different route. But hopefully this gives you some insights. Let's get this started. Now, in the 7th spot, you're probably going to get someone like Amon-Ra. Maybe you get a running back here. Those are typically where you're going to see most of those players fall. Now, CeeDee Lamb being at the 101 isn't that surprising. I have seen him or Christian McCaffrey. Now, seeing Christian McCaffrey at the 104 and Amon-Ra early, that's a lot different. You're not going to typically see this. You're probably going to see this here and Amon-Ra a little bit later. So with that said, looking at what I've got here, running back is probably still my favorite player to grab in the first round. Now, in this one, I'm going to grab Breece Hall because I do give Breece Hall just a slight edge over Bijan Robinson, only because the competition is a lot less there in New York compared to Atlanta. Atlanta's got Tyler Algier. He still has obviously receiving options like Drake London, Mooney, Kyle Pitts. Realistically, in New York, it's not the same. So Breece Hall is going to get plenty of targets in the air, plenty of touches on the ground. So I like Breece Hall just a little bit better. Now, on the swing, you'll see a couple running backs here. I'd love to have gotten Jahmyr Gibbs. This is typically where you're seeing him in this area in the 2nd round. I've seen him go in the 1st. He's one of my favorite players to draft. I'm still going to go that running back position in the 2nd round. I know, obviously, receiving is such a big aspect, especially in full PPR. But there are a lot more receivers that you can grab later in the draft that will still help you win your league, where there are a lot less running backs that are really top running backs. Most running backs now, unfortunately, are dealing with a timeshare. So with that said, I'm going to grab Saquon Barkley here because, again, Saquon Barkley, no timeshare as we know it. He will have to obviously compete with Jalen Hurts, which is a concern of mine. I do have a little bit of a concern, which is why he's not falling in the 1st. But great offensive line, obviously receiving threats on the outside that will keep defenses honest, which might help Barkley out this season where he didn't have that in New York. So on the 3rd round, you got to start grabbing wide receivers in this one. You got your 2 starting running backs here if you're going to go that route. So you got to grab some top receivers. Now, looking at these receivers, I'm going to give the edge to Stephon Diggs, even though I know people will probably go Nico Collins ahead of Diggs. But I think Diggs is still a wide receiver 1, and I think he'll respect that and get that kind of rapport with CJ Stroud this offseason. And I think CJ Stroud's going to really take advantage of having a player like Diggs out there. I'm not looking for Diggs to be the guide for the next few years, just this year, and that's all that matters to me right now. If we're talking dynasty, we're talking a whole nother avenue. So I got Diggs here, and on the swing here, you start to see a tight end like Kelsey, obviously the rushing quarterbacks. So again, not surprising, a lot of the rushing quarterbacks will start. You could go Jalen Hurts here. It's not a bad move because Jalen Hurts obviously is a big rush, and you can stack him with Saquon Barkley, which is I'm going to do here. Because of that stack, it only helps you out. Plus, if one of these guys gets in the red zone, one of these guys are going to score, so I don't hate that move. And Jalen Hurts has been one of the top quarterbacks and it comes to fantasy because of those rushing ability and those red zone touchdowns. Now, I will be curious how they're going to play without Jason Kelsey. That tush push, brotherly push, whatever you want to call it, may change. I'm not really sure how much. So there's a little bit of an asterisk with Jalen Hurts, but I still think he's got strong value. I typically will go grab a quarterback a little bit later because I think you can get great value towards the end. But I'm going to show you a way to, again, stacking your quarterback with your running back or wide receivers, not a bad move at all. So I'm going to grab a receiver here because you got to get some receivers. So I like Zay Flowers here with Lamar Jackson. I think they're only going to get better. Obviously, Zay Flowers, I wish I'd gone to a different team. I know Cowboys, but I think Zay Flowers is in a great position to have some success. He's my wide receiver too, so I don't hate it too much. And again, I think there is going to be some growth. I think there's going to be a chance where a healthy Andrews is going to help. Obviously, Zay Flowers, maybe Bateman finally shows up. I think it's going to be a really good offense for the Ravens. I'm going to grab George Pickens here. I think Pickens is in a good spot to be really either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson's number one, and I think he's going to show up really well this season. I like Pickens there. I could have gone Kyle Pitts because I do like Kyle Pitts a lot as well. He typically falls within the 6th, 7th round, so if you don't grab him there, you're probably not going to get him at all. But with that said, I don't hate the move of grabbing Pickens because I still get a tight end here in Evan Ingram. I know some people are going to argue that Kittle probably should have gone, but Evan Ingram has been amazing since he's been with Jacksonville. Like one of the top tier tight ends, but no one talks about him at all. They treat him like he's bottom 10. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. So with that said, I'm grabbing Evan Ingram and I'm going to put him on a roster and he's going to be fantastic for me. So again, don't hate the move at all. Kittle's still there. Kittle is a good tight end where sometimes his games show up in 1 or 2 games, most of his fantasy points, and the rest of the season he kind of flops. That's my only concern with George Kittle. Amazing tight end. I think he's one of the best in the game. But as far as fantasy, I'm going to hold off. So a lot of wide receivers are here. A little bit of a risk. I'm going to try to play something different. Now, part of me wants to grab Zamir White because I need another running back. But I'm going to try to see if I can hold off. And again, this is the risk you're going to play in fantasy drafts. Maybe you can get him on the 9th round. So with that said, I'm going to grab a wide receiver here. I'm actually going to jump on the Jordan Addison bandwagon. I know there's some quarterback play that is a lot of concern. You could always go Rashee Rice, who's got a top tier quarterback. You could go, look, Addison, I think still has some value. I like him. I think he's, again, as my 4th receiver. Don't hate it. I think I've got a lot of upside there. Deontay Johnson's another one I almost considered because I think Deontay Johnson's going to be force-fed a lot of targets. So with that said, I didn't get the running backs that I wanted. Zamir White went a lot sooner than I had hoped. Sometimes that's the risk you take when it comes to fantasy drafts. Obviously, you'll start working the draft, the trades and stuff like that. So I'm actually going to take a risk and grab Nick Chubb here. Nick Chubb obviously is a guy who's probably not going to show up until probably, I'd say week 3 or 4. So if you could hold off, which I love my running backs here, so I'm not in desperate need, I don't mind the risk of grabbing Nick Chubb a little bit early because I think Nick Chubb, when he does come back, will end up being a top running back, even though he's got some crazy surgery going on with his knees. I will take that every single time. So great tight ends here. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if you don't grab your tight ends like Ingram or Pitts or Kittle or whatever like that, there's some really good tight end options you can grab later on that you could grab some of these other premier positions. That's what we're here to give you some insight of what players are starting to fall so you kind of get a game plan of how this is going to play out. So I'm actually going to jump and grab Jaylen Warren for the Steelers. Again, another player that I think has value, especially in PPR, has value when it comes to, again, a second role, has value in, again, a handcuff to Najee Harris. Because right now, Najee Harris is going to be the RB1. Jaylen Warren is essentially RB1B, if you really want to consider that. So, again, Jaylen Warren's a nice little pickup. I love seeing that Zeke is getting a little bit higher. I still, in the 11th round, I think is a little bit of a steal. So if he could have fallen to me, I would have grabbed him there because I think he's going to be 10 plus touchdowns. So that's one player I am trying to grab every single time when I come to these drafts. So I've got 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers. I don't have a backup tight end. I don't have a backup quarterback. You could go that route. I will grab Dallas Goedert to kind of pair up with my Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley stack. Again, not necessarily needing Dallas Goedert, but I think it's a good play to stack him with my quarterback. I will grab a backup quarterback as well. Where I'm going to grab my backup quarterback, I'm going to try to see if I can get him a little bit later. I'm not going to grab him right now. I'm actually going to go grab another player. And for me, it's going to be Curtis Samuel. I think Curtis Samuel has some value when it comes to this Buffalo Bills. We'll see how this thing plays out with this whole receiving core. Obviously with Keon Coleman, Shakir, not really sure. You got Kincaid still, you got Knox. But Curtis Samuel is a very explosive receiver. Showed up really well last year for the Commanders. So again, a little bit of a risk, but super late in my draft, so I don't feel really bad about it. Now I'll grab my backup quarterback, which is going to be Trevor Lawrence. Again, if I had to start Trevor Lawrence, I have Evan Ingram as a nice little stack. If you can stack some of your players, it's always fun to do. Gives you some more For me, stacking gives you a couple things. You get some great points for both players. And again, just gives you some fun for the game to watch. Now I'm going to grab my kicker. You got to get a kicker. Some people don't play kickers at all. Always grab a kicker that's going to be some team that's going to be top offense. So here, Jake Elliott for the Eagles. I know I'm a Cowboys fan. I know I've got a lot of Eagles players on this roster. But again, stacking your kicker with your quarterback or wide receiver or running back is always fun to have as well. Again, helps you out with all those points that they're going to score. Defensively, you're not going to get the best defensive teams if you're playing that way. Obviously, if you're talking IDP, it's a whole different animal. But I will grab the Pittsburgh Steelers because, again, TJ Watt, Fitzpatrick, the new addition of Patrick Queen. I mean, there's so many great players on that defense. I think they'll end up being a top 10, and I'll take that every single time. So that is my 107 draft for the mock drafts. Again, if you guys have questions or if you guys loved what I did with this team, or maybe you guys thought, hey, I should have gone a different route, hit me up in the comments down below. I'd love to see your comments. Also, if you have different type of formats, let me know because I'm going to start doing videos for you guys that are requesting different types of formats to help you guys out with your draft season. Again, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, share the video with your league mates or friends, and I'll check you guys out next time.